BF cheated and got my sister pregnant. So I left him, but mom insisted me to forgive them, so I cut my family off for years. After reconciling, I found out mom had been sleeping with my ex's dad. This incident dates back to 14 years ago when I was still in high school. We were a close-knit group of three folks: I, Becky, and Rob, 17F, and 18F back then. Rob had to repeat a year when his parents moved back to the States from Prague. So we three were in the same class. More than friends, we were a family. Our fathers were best friends. While my dad and Becky's dad settled here after their college, Rob's father moved to Prague for work, but they moved back when Rob was 7. Becky and I had known each other ever since we were in diapers. Rob became our friends when we were 6 and Rob was 7. So we had known each other since ever. Becky, Rob, and I pledged to be lifelong friends just like our parents. Rob and I started dating when I was 15. It was not just a teenage fling. We dated for 2 years and we were kind of serious. At least I was, and he pretended that he was too. We planned on enrolling in the same college and then getting married. People used to call Becky the third wheel. In actual, Becky and I were so close that Rob said he felt like third wheeling between us. Perhaps I was the extra wheel. I'll get to it eventually. When we were 17, Becky got knocked up. She was so terrified that she locked herself up in the school's washroom. I was horrified too to see those 2 pink lines. I asked her who the guy was. She didn't say anything. All she did was cry and dread about her parents' reaction to this. She tested it twice in front of me. In order to calm her down, I asked her to see a doctor first, before telling her parents. I took her to the doctor. Her pregnancy was confirmed. She was so scared of her parents that she kept it hidden for almost a month. That 1 month was equally tough for me. I brought her supplements, ensured that she had a proper meal, got her snacks and juices, and lent her a shoulder to cry on. She confided in me about her fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. I was her only support, yet she was not willing to reveal the guy's name. Despite her keeping that a secret, I supported her through all means. I finally convinced her to speak to her parents. Before it became evident, she asked me to be with her when she told them. I agreed to be game. It was not unusual for our parents to see us bailing each other. Her parents thought it was one such matter. The moment she revealed that she was pregnant, her parents called up mine to share their distress. She didn't reveal the guy's name even in front of the parents. She cried so profusely that my parents asked her parents to calm down and give time to Becky to confide in them. 2 days later, my mom tells me not to visit Beckley so often, and that I should focus on my studies, rather than being a babysitter to my friend. This restriction was not like, Becky is bad company for you, because she was very protective towards her. A week later, I got to know why she was asking me to stay away from Becky. Not to protect me, but to protect her. That evening, I randomly showed up at Becky's. There I found Rob with his parents. Both Becky and Rob were crying. Even my parents were present there. As soon as my mother saw me, she rushed to me and asked me to go home. I asked her what's the matter. She said none of my business. Seeing me, Rob and Becky both got astonished, and I instantly understood what's the matter. I screamed at them, "The baby is Rob's. You both were fooling around behind my back." They both rushed to me and kept saying, "We can explain." I said no explanation. The truth is out and open. My boyfriend and my best friend is hooking up behind my back, and my best friend is having his baby. My parents dragged me out from there because I was screaming out so loud. I came home and locked up myself. I cried for days, curling up inside my bed. It was beyond heartbreaking. I trusted her blindly and supported her by all means in tough times while she was fucking my boyfriend in her backyard. The worst part was, everyone was so occupied with caring for the would-be mama that no one even thought about my pain. Surely, Becky and Rob tried to reach out to me, but I slammed the door on their face. I blocked both of them on all social media platforms. It was understandable for Becky's and Rob's parents to not care about my heartbreak, but even my parents were least empathetic about it. My mom was like, "Get over it, be happy. Your best friend is gonna have a baby. You'll be a fun and of cute lil munchkin." She acted so delusional. I mean, my best friend is carrying my boyfriend's baby, and she wants me to be happy about that. She said, "Oh, come on, don't spoil this for everyone. All of us are so happy to welcome the baby into our lives. Don't ruin that. It's not a big deal for Rob to sleep with your friend. It's very common in teenage years. Don't take it to your heart. I'm sure you'll soon find another loving boyfriend." She winked and said, "More handsome and tall than Rob." My mental condition got worse. I couldn't place my finger on when this would have happened, and how could I not see that coming? No one was there for me to confide in. My sister, 15F back then, was dating Becky's brother, so she was definitely on her side. When I cried in front of her, she said, "How could you not guess that Rob was the dad? You three are always together. If any of you two are having a baby, it has to be Rob's." She also preached me the same thing: move on, don't spoil our relationship with them. School was the worst. Rob and Becky had dropped out. Rob couldn't take the bully, and Becky dropped out for obvious reason. I had no friends besides these two losers. And everyone in the school knew that me and Rob were dating. Then Rob made Becky pregnant, and they both dropped out, leaving me at the mercy of the bullies. My family was more concerned about their friendship with Becky's and Rob's parents than about my feelings. Dad was still better. He used to check on me sometimes, but Mom was worst. She was supplying Becky with handmade cookies while I was crying and sulking in my room. She basically belittled and laughed at my feelings. As her pregnancy grew, my condition became worse. It was just so difficult to see Rob taking Becky for walks, for checkups, and for dates to ease her anxiety. My family asked me to look away from them and move them. I don't know how I could possibly move on. I mean, they both were my neighbors. It was not only difficult but impossible to not run into one of them at least once a day. On top of that, my family was constantly engaged in the conversation about their baby. Apparently, they called themselves to be would-be grandparents. Yeah, our families have been close. If she was having a baby with anyone else, I would have shared the same happiness as them. But not anymore. My mental state went for a toss. It got so bad that on the day of my final exams at high school, I packed my bag to run away from home. I've been planning for this ever since their baby-making news came out. I was saving up for it. I had sold all my books, comics, gadgets, watches, and whatever little jewelry I owned. I told I was going on a trek with my friends. My family was so done with my sulking that they didn't ask anything and said, "Sure, have fun." I left home never to come back again. I went to the next town, lived in a hostel, and waited table for a living. It was stressful with immense uncertainty about the future, but I felt so much better than to be at home. After a month, my parents started contacting me, asking me when I would return home. I had changed my number. They emailed me. I blocked them from there too. They used others' email IDs to write me, so I told my sister that I was not returning home ever and asked them not to contact me. They were emailing me from other rids, so I changed that too. That was it. I don't know what did they do to find me. Living alone was not hunky-dory, but eventually, I navigated. I waited tables for 2 years, then took up a receptionist for another year, and lastly landed up a sales job which lasted for 3 years. I met my husband when I was working in sales. He was a marketing guy. We both connected over our troubled family issues. He lost his mom at an early age, and his dad married a teenage girl of his age and forced him to call her mom. Other gaslighting and verbal abuse followed until he ran away from home. We had known each other for just a year when he said he wanted to fund my college education, which I can pay him back later. He wanted me to do better in life. I accepted his offer and went to college. I continued to work part-time during college to take care of my other expenses. I studied accounting and grabbed a decent paying job right after my graduation. On my first day after work, he proposed to me and we got married a year later. We have a son now. Life is good. A month ago, we went to Disneyland. And then we bumped into my sister who was there with her family. She had married Becky's brother and have a son with him. I hugged her son and the moment was so surreal. I hugged my sister and we cried. She hated me for ghosting her. She and her husband, Becky's brother, both apologized for not supporting me enough. I said let the bygone be bygone and let's enjoy the trip. We all enjoyed. Like a family. I exchanged contacts with her. She made me promise to stay in touch with her. Now she went home and told Mom about bumping into me. She texted me that Mom is asking for my number. I was still not sure if I want to get in touch with her. My husband advised me to make peace with my family and move on. So, I gave the green signal to my sister about sharing my number. Just an hour later to that, I got a call from my mother. She was sobbing over the call. She relented her mistakes. She said she was sorry that I had to go through all of this. She said she was yearning to meet her grandchild. She is insisting me to visit home with my family. While I didn't say yes or no yet, I'm thinking what to do. Edit. I missed one important point. My sister was showing me the pictures of my brother's children, and while scrolling through the gallery, I stumbled upon her family picture. It had Becky and Rob. My sister told me Becky and Rob got married 4 years after I ran away from home. They had 2 more boys apart from the first girl baby. I just smiled and said nothing. She wanted to say more about them, but seeing me not interested, she backed off. Update 1. Hey guys, sorry for not updating this earlier. Let me start from where I left. After a lot of contemplation, I went to meet my family. My parents hugged me and cried. Yeah, they apologized for neglecting my feelings. It was a bittersweet moment for us. My sister was there with her husband and kids. Her husband, Becky's brother, also apologized to me and requested me to be in touch. It was so nice to meet them all. We all grew up together like a family. My brother, who was 10 when I left, is also married now and has a 2-month-old infant. It felt so good to hold and play with my nieces and nephews. We went there for 2 days trip. The first day was so emotional and beautiful in its own way. My parents met my husband and my son, who was so delighted to meet his grandparents. On the second day, I was casually chit-chatting with my sister, and my mom comes in and says, "See, I told you, you would find a better man than Rob, and see, you did find such a good husband. You unnecessarily blew up the entire situation." My sister gave her a look and asked her to stop. But who could stop her? She continued, "Oh, that's okay. Charlie, me, is over her past now. Look how happy she is in her life." I said, "Surely I am." She sat beside me and said, "Then why not make peace with the past, forgive everyone, and move on?" I said I did make peace with the past and I have forgiven you all. She said she didn't mean them but Rob and Becky. She wanted me to forgive them and get into talking terms with them so that we all can hang out as a family like before. I said, "Why do you want me to do that? You guys still hang out with them without me." She said it embarrasses them that I don't talk to their children, Becky and Rob, but their children are so nice to my parents. I said, "But your other 2 children, my brother and my sister, are nice to your friends. Be happy with that, why bother me?" She insisted that I forgive Becky and Rob and become their friends again. I said no way, and it is none of your business. She started preaching me the importance of forgiveness and Jesus stuff. Then she said Becky wants to meet you and your husband. Can I call her for dinner? I said if you do that, I'm leaving the house now and never coming back. At this point, my siblings also got pissed off at Mom that why she told Becky about my visit. To her defense, Mom said Becky's dad saw me through the window, and he might have told Becky. And then Becky called Mom and requested her to patch me up with them. I got so furious at her lame excuse that I stood up and went inside my room. My sister followed me inside the room and said, Mom has a weird obsession with Becky's family. I mean, yeah, they all are friends from 4 decades. But the way Mom cares to keep the friendship smooth, it looks so fishy now. I asked her what made her say so. She said last year, she and her husband were going through a turbulence in their relationship. My sister casually mentioned to Mom that if her husband continues his gaslighting habit, she might divorce him. Mom lost her shit and said outrightly that there would be no divorce. Whatever happens, sister has to adjust even if he cheated on her because we cannot ruin their friendship. Sounds weird. Me and my sister looked back in the past and realized Mom had always been like this. She always loved Becky and her brother more than us. Back then, we never complained about this because Becky was my best friend and her brother was my sister's boyfriend. Discussion over. We came back home. I almost forgot about this talk with my sister. Last week, my husband showed me a video where a middle-aged couple is making out at a bar. That couple is no one but my mother with Becky's dad. Yes, it blew my mind. My mother's obsession with keeping a good relationship with them makes so much sense now. They can hang out anytime they want. My husband went next town, not my hometown, for a work trip, and there he saw them. He recognized that it was Mom but didn't recognize that the man was Becky's dad. He recorded it to show it to me because there was no way I would have believed him without the video. After seeing the video, I was choking. I really needed to spit that out. So, I called my sister and asked her to come down next day. She sensed it was urgent. And she rushed. I showed her the video, and she is equally shocked. My sister has not told her husband yet because he would be equally freaked out. Now, we are at a fix. What do we do now? Do we tell Dad about this, or should we confront Mom and ask her to mend her ways? But wouldn't that be cheating on Dad again? It's getting complicated. Update 2. My parents are getting divorced. Yes, for obvious reasons. My sister and I spent weeks thinking what to do. I at least could discuss it with my husband, and then out, but my sister's condition was worse. She can't even discuss that with her husband. Her anxiety and silence were spoiling her relationship. We had to do something. So we did what any other siblings in the world would do. We told our brother thinking he might come up with a better idea to deal with the situation. On seeing the video, he absolutely lost it. He went straight to Mom and confronted her in front of Dad. She denied it, and he rubbed the video on her face. I don't know if it was wise or foolish of us to involve him, but at least he offloaded our burden. Brother told us that he was absolutely pissed with Mom all his life because she had been ignoring him in front of Becky and her brother. He said he hated me and my sister because of our closeness with that family, but when he grew up, our closeness made sense but Mom's didn't. Dad and my brother almost barged into their house and showed the video to Becky's mom, who broke down on seeing her husband making out with our mother. To simplify the matter to you guys, Mom was basically sleeping with Dad's best friend. Yeah. Everyone got to know the truth, including Rob and his parents. Dad and Becky's mom became a team and grilled Mom and Becky's dad. We wanted to be neutral, but we couldn't after knowing that they had been fooling around ever since we were a child. Initially, they claimed that it started recently as a midlife crisis, but their stories were inconsistent. Dad threatened to throw her out of the house right away. Then they spoke the truth of cheating for over 25 years. Yes, they have been doing this under everyone's nose and no one ever suspected them. Dad tried to hold the fort for the sake of the family, but he grew miserable. One day he just showed up at my door, hugged me, and cried like a baby. He said now he understood what pain I must have gone through when my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. Mom did the exact same thing with Dad, sleeping with his best friend. It's terrible. It's like getting stabbed from both ends. Dad called all three of us, me, my sister, and my brother, for a meeting. He said he was sorry, but he could not forgive Mom and live with her any more pretending nothing happened. Mom was telling him the same thing she told me, forgive and move on. Dad was proceeding for a divorce, and before that, he wanted to inform us. All three of us lend our support to him, that we are with him whatever he decides. Apparently, when Mom got to know that Dad is going to serve her, she blacked out. She pleaded with him to give her one last chance for the sake of the family. I was not present at that time, but my sister was, and she gave Mom a piece of her mind. It was one huge drama in the family. Dad ultimately got her served and moved out. A similar story happened with Becky's parents. Her mom has filed for a divorce, and she has also moved out of the house. So, in my house, Mom is alone, and in her house, her dad is alone. They might just move in together, who knows, blessing in disguise for them. Who knows, they both might have been waiting to live together. Anyways, I am out of this. I have my own family to care for. These divorces have been rough on my sister because her both side of the family is affected. She and her husband are going through tough times. I hope their relationship doesn't suffer in between all this and they sail through this rough patch. Thanks for all the love. I'll update the thread if anything develops. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Husband wanted to name our daughter Stuarta as the feminine form of his own name. After 18 hours of labor, I impulsively named her after our kind nurse instead. So, my husband, 38M, and I, 36F, are expecting our first child, a bouncing baby girl due in a few months. We were both over the moon when we found out the gender, but now things have gotten complicated, to say the least. See, when we first started talking about names, the boy name was immediately decided, Stuart Jr., after my husband. No problem there, it's a classic name and carries family meaning. But, for a girl, things got murky. My husband suggested Stuarta. No. You're not having a stroke. Apparently, his logic is that since Stuart ends in T, we can just add an A to make it feminine. I try to explain why that doesn't quite work. How it sounds more like a furniture brand than a human name. How she'd be endlessly correcting people and explaining its origin. He's adamant though, says it honors him while giving our daughter a unique name. I've suggested alternatives, feminine names that maybe share a similar sound or meaning to Stuart. Names he's mentioned liking in the past, even just going back to the drawing board entirely. But he's fixated on Stuarta. Now, I love my husband dearly. And I understand wanting to honor family. But I can't imagine subjecting our daughter to a lifetime of awkward stares and endless questions about her unusual name. I also worry about potential bullying and the impact it could have on her self-esteem. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to budge on Stuarta? Is there any compromise I haven't considered? Help us soon to be mama. Out. Looking forward to your thoughts and, hopefully, some sanity checks. Edit, please, no suggestions for other town names. The man clearly has a theme, and I need to gently steer him away from it, not fuel the fire. Comments, Polifpenny 1993, NTA. Naming a child is a 2 yes and 1 no situation. Means you need 2 times yes for a name to be it, and 1 no to make sure that name is not the name you choose. Works both ways if you'd ask me. Also, I am not a fan of naming the first name of a child after a parent, because then the child will always be compared to their parents and need to fight harder to be their own person. I have less problems with the middle name being connected to someone else, parents, grandparents, because that is only a formal name and not used in everyday business. Why is he dead set on Stuarta? I mean, there are so many beautiful names, but he only wants to name his daughter after him. Why not after the mother? Like your name Junior. It is a bit misogynistic to only want to name the baby after the father. Whose last name will the baby get? His as well. Maybe you could find a way, like name the baby with the same first letter as your husband. Stella, Sally, Sana, etc. Make sure the baby has a middle name if she shares the same last name as her father, because it will be annoying for simple things like mail and stuff. Shell 37628. To piggyback on this, what's his middle name? Could there be a feminine version of that that's less objectionable / actually a name rather than just a weird mishmash of sounds? Lost random. Dude, I suppose if you go by the meaning of the name, Stuart means guardian of the house, so perhaps Hestia / Vesta. I suppose Stacy is an option, but I presume Op doesn't want to be Stacy's mom. Delete it, girl, it is super simple. He gets to choose the name when he pushes out the baby. Why is it only him being honored and not you? By the way, you need to let your nurses at the hospital know about this. I have read some horror stories here on Reddit where dads or mills have named the baby and signed the birth certificate. NTA. Curious Catkins 96. The idea of having children as a means of honoring the parent is so incredibly fucked up and bound to lead to a lifetime of dysfunction. But then I'm flat out against ever naming a child for anyone else anyway. Except that you're not having a baby, you're giving life to a human and raising them to adulthood. Give them their own identity, for the love of all that's holy. Llama no_drama. This is why I tell people parenthood scares the shit out of me. You aren't raising a baby, or even a child, you are raising an adult. A whole-ass human that will exist on and interact with this planet for 70+ years. I feel like having a baby is basically making a covenant with society not to raise an unspeakable adult. Definitely don't make it harder by giving them the stupidest name I've ever imagined. Princess_ferocious NTA. Tell him he only gets one kid named after him, so if he goes with Stewart and now, he'll never get a Stewart Jr., and how come it's so important that he be honored, but not you? See how he feels about naming a futures on a male version of your name. Remind him that baby names need a yes from both parents or it's a no. You both need to be able to live with whatever you go with, even if that means both of you missing out on the one you want most. Update, first. The good news, we have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. She weighed in at 7 pounds 4 ounces. And already has the most incredible head of dark hair. Seriously, where did that come from? Labor was a marathon, not a sprint, 18 hours of fun. But the amazing nurses kept me fueled up on ice chips and cheesy encouragement. Now, for the not-so-good news, the name situation. Buckle up. Because this might take a minute. Right before pushing started, things got a little heated between me and Stewart. Apparently, the stress of contractions made him even more attached to Stewarta. He was pacing the room, muttering about family legacy while I was doing some very impressive lemmas breathing exercises. Suddenly, my water broke with a rather impressive pop. Let's just say it startled everyone in the room, including Stewart. The nurse, bless her heart, took advantage of the distraction and very calmly started prepping for delivery. Everything after that was a blur of pushing, encouraging words, and the most amazing head of dark hair emerging into the world. The second our daughter was out, screaming her little lungs out, a wave of pure, primal love washed over me. It was in that moment, staring at this tiny, perfect human being, that the name debate completely evaporated. There was no way I could call this beautiful little girl Stewarda. So, what did we end up with? In the haze of postpartum bliss, I blurted out the first name that popped into my head. The name of the incredible nurse who'd coached me through labor. Ella. Yes, Ella. Not exactly the most adventurous choice. But in that moment, it felt perfect. Strong, steady, kind. Just like the woman who'd helped bring our daughter into the world. Steward, bless his confused heart, just looked at me, then at our daughter, then back at me again. Finally, he let out a shaky laugh and said, Ella it is. Thanks for all the support and hilarious Stewarda comparisons. Here's to sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the incredible journey of parenthood. Comments, tank words, don't name your kids. And name they have to explain for the rest of their life. It's a selfish indulgence by a parent. And the biggest asshole thing you can do to a baby that's done nothing to deserve it. Ella might not be the most adventurous name ever, but it'll never be a negative for your kid. Good show rejecting Stewarda. Sunny Samantha, I knew a guy whose dad's name was Al. He got named Alex. His sister Alice. His mom finally stepped in, and the third kid got a normal name. To be fair, non-memorable. And I also knew a happy guy and buddy guy. I just want to name a kid something they'll find on a toothbrush or keychain. Smashed potato. Imagine needing your child to be named after you badly. You think anything even remotely resembling Stewarda is a good idea. Acceptable_box_7500. Damn it, Steward. If you're so desperate to have something named after you, why don't you go discover a new planet or something? Don't have a hole. Less kid. Acceptable_box_7500. I truly cannot imagine naming my child after myself. I don't understand that impulse at all. I certainly can't imagine being so hell-bent on self-aggrandizement that I do my kid to a name like Stewarda.